guys are here for Ignite, making and receiving offers, you're in the right place. This is a super, I think, fun session. So really when we get to, for me, a fun part of our transactions and our business and all of our hard work. So I'm trying to look through here, all of you guys that are signed up. I'm from Market Center up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. My name is Susan Kenyon, and I just see my cohort, Jason Westcott from Portsmouth, the 463 Market Center, joining in. I am licensed in New Hampshire and Maine. And I come from, whenever I teach Ignite or really anything, I come from the perspective of production. I'm an active agent, I'm a producing agent, and I come from the perspective of we are in a sales job. We are in a, we come from contribution and we're always here to serve, but this is a sales job. So if anybody thought that it was something else besides sales, you're a little off the mark. We are definitely always selling. So everything that I do here today is going to come from that flavor of, producing and getting more business and earning more business and repeat business and referral business and things of that nature. I've had my license for almost 9 years, and I practiced with my husband. He got his license about 4 years before me. And when it became feasible, so we do this full time. He actually is stepping back a little bit this year, where he started a new company. But he is still in the real estate business, and I do this full time. So guys, it's a big transition, isn't it? When you decide to do this full time and just have a 100% commission livelihood. But if we can do it, then you can do it. So I don't know how many of you out there are doing this full time, or if you're dipping your toes in the water and dual careering. What are you guys doing?
Full time for me, except for building a house, but that's not a career.
How are you? Nice to see you.
I'm full-time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Cape Cod.
From Cape Cod. Good. It's a big leap, isn't it?
It's shocking.
Yeah.
But it's been fun.
Yep. Good.
I'm enjoying it. Yeah. I figured if it wasn't fun or interesting and, you have to put a lot of your heart and soul into it, then, it wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah.
But so far, so good.
Good. Good. Well, congratulations for all of you for being here. That's a big first step too. So that's where I come from. I have my broker's license in New Hampshire and my sales license in Maine. I mostly practice in New Hampshire, but I do dabble in Maine as well. And Jason Westcott is here to assist me today. Are you here, Jay?
I am.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, guy. Hey, everyone. My name is Jason Westcott. I've been licensed since 2003. I came to Keller Williams in 2006. I am the assistant managing broker for Keller Williams Coastal Lakes and Mountains in both Maine and New Hampshire, soon to be Vermont. And I will have my Mass license by the end of 2022. But my role here is to work under Nate is the owner here, Nate Dickey, and then the managing broker of the entire firm is Jennifer Vachon, and then I'm under Jennifer. So we have 850 agents here, so we needed more than one broker. Poor Jen. I've been teaching Ignite for, 10 years. I'm a nine-time bold graduate. I was a mega agent when I was in production. I am no longer in production. We're not allowed to be in production as managing brokers at this firm. So if you guys have any questions, ask Susan. She's much smarter than me.
That's why I love it when you're with me, Jason.
Yeah, you know what they say, behind every good man's a better woman. So I'm going to sit here and look pretty.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me okay without my headset on? Okay. If you start having a hard time, let me know and I'll pop that on. So awesome. Congratulations for being here. I love participation. So jump right in, you guys, interrupt me. I will, Jason's going to help with monitoring the chat room. I'm not always great at seeing the chat questions when they come in, but I will be looking to see if anyone also raises your digital hand. But if you don't want to do it digitally, just, how we participate here is how we participate everywhere. So participate and show up, because that is, part of success is in real estate is showing up and being there, and letting people know that we're there. So today's a great day to start showing up and participating. This is a really great session. Our session today is making and receiving offers, but I love that Ignite starts every session with this slide, because I think that we're also fortunate to be part of Keller Williams. I personally have never been with any other brokerage. I do get calls and stuff like that, but I just have zero interest in going anywhere because everything that I need is here. And what I love is all the training and education that we get. What's so fantastic about Ignite is that they went out to successful agents and said, hey, what are you guys doing? Keywords in the last 2 words every day to be successful. And let's build a class around that. And that is what Ignite is all about. It's what successful agents do every single day to be successful. So of course, that starts with growing our business, where we are lead generating for buyers and sellers. And this far into Ignite, I'm sure you've heard the word lead generation about 5 million times. And we'll probably say it another 100 here today between now and noontime, but it really is the lifeline of our business. And lead generation comes in so many different shapes and forms and venues. Like, are we picking up the phone and calling? And there's Facebook lead generating and expireds and FISBOs and sphere of influence. But we do need to lead generate every single day for buyers and sellers. And growing our business looks like making seller presentations and getting listings, and making buyer presentations and getting buyer agency agreements signed, and previewing real estate. We have to know what our market looks like, what's going on in our marketplace, so that we can have value added conversations with people when we're lead generating. And when we grow our business, we get the privilege to be able to go over to the right side of our screen and run our business. And that looks like we get a listing agreement signed. We have to market that listing, right? Our job is to sell it for the most money with the best terms for our seller. And we get to show our buyers houses and take them shopping. We negotiate contracts, which is what we're going to really be focusing on a lot today with making and receiving offers. And it's, contract to close, transaction management to closing, vendor management. There's a lot of people that come in and out of this transaction once we go under agreement. Especially, we have home inspectors and appraisers, and we have lenders. We may have contractors and specialists that are coming in to look at properties. So we have to manage the vendors on behalf of our clients so they have a seamless and fantastic experience. And we have to set goals. We set goals around the growing our business side and around the running our business side. Like, how many transactions do we want to close? What do we want that experience to look like for our buyers and our sellers? And we have to always be aware of compliance and risk management. That is part of our job, to keep ourselves out of risk and also keep our buyers and our sellers out of a risk position. And we attend training like we're doing today and get coaching. And really important is we're working so hard. I mean, my gosh, when you look at the 4 things under growing your business and the 9 things under running your business, that's a lot of work that we have to do every day. So we need to manage the money that we're bringing home to our families. Right? There's a fantastic session of Ignite. I hope none of you miss it, on finance. I don't know who's teaching it this time, but it's a really great component to Ignite, where it does talk about the importance of managing your money, like setting aside pieces of your commission for your taxes. You know who the easiest people to sell to are? Salespeople. We're salespeople. So if you haven't gotten calls for buy this subscription, $200 a month, invest in this, I can send you leads for this, you'll be getting those calls. We're the easiest people to sell to. So we have to wrap a lot of control around that. And when we're setting goals and we know where our money needs to go into the future, when we get those calls, we know how to handle them, and we know whether or not it's time to be putting in money in those buckets. So managing our money is important because we have a responsibility to bring money home to our family to pay our bills and to also have fun with that. Like, what are we doing for fun? Where are we going on vacation? How are we going to make us doing real estate, which takes away time from our family on nights and weekends? How are we giving that back financially to our families? So managing our money is really important too. So I'm glad that they put this slide up every day because it is a good reminder that we always should be coming back to these basics of doing this every single day so that we can be the successful agents that this course is really built around. So today, we're going to talk about the process. Uh-oh, my screen just went blank. Did my presentation just go away?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Let me get it back. Give me 1 second here. Oh, I don't know what happened, a little snafu here. Did you guys see that?
No,
Okay, hold on. How about that? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whew. All right. And you know what? When we're making and receiving offers or talking to our clients, this stuff happens all the time. So sometimes you just have to roll with it. So we're going to jump into today. This is kind of our roadmap for today, the offer process and what that looks like. And we're going to do it from both sides. We're going to do it from making an offer and from receiving an offer. So let's just jump right in. And, you know, everything starts with a relationship. So relationships really, for me, are the core of my business. My tagline is relationship service results, because everything that I do needs to happen in that order for me and my business. I start with a relationship. I can't really serve somebody if I don't have a relationship with them. And the reason I like to really delve into that with my buyers and sellers is because I'm here for the long term. And when we're in the mindset of building relationships, that is setting the stage for, we're going to have multiple transactions with these people because we're going to stay in relationship with them. So the offer process starts with the buyer makes an offer. And, you know, when I am working with a buyer and we're going to make an offer, I usually will start with, you know, pre-filling out the offer. And before we get any further into this, I just want to put a little caveat out there that there's a lot of states on this call because it's a regional training session. So I'm going to try to keep state-specific language out, but please remember that everything has to be compliant with whatever state you're practicing in as we go through. So for me in New Hampshire and Maine, our purchase and sales agreement, our offer turns into the purchase and sales agreement. I start with pre-filling that out and then reviewing that with my buyer and going over it line by line. Because from the beginning, when I know you guys already had the buyer consultation session, you may have started talking about the offer process way back then. By this time, they don't remember that. They don't remember what the buying process is going to look like. So I like to review the purchase and sales agreement or the offer line by line, making sure that they are super clear on what the contingencies are and what their options are. And I never assume what they're going to want to put into the offer. I can advise them. I give them all of their options, but ultimately the decision is up to them. And sometimes they might make a decision on the offer that I wouldn't personally make, but it's not about me. For me, this is business. For them, it's personal. So our job is to give them all of their options and let them know what the consequence is based off of whatever they decide to do. And we're always being professional. We're always giving them their contingency options. And if they, we're going to have those buyers that are going to be like, even though it's an extreme seller's market, they think that they can go in and offer low and get a deal. Even though we're like, this offer is not going to get accepted if you do that. Some buyers need to feel the pain of losing offers before they'll actually believe that. So that sometimes is part of the process. So the buyer will make an offer. And we have to remember that when we get to this stage of the offer, emotions are really high for everybody but us. They might even be high for the co-broke. But our emotions should never be high when we're interfacing with our buyers, our sellers, or our co-brokes. Because for us, this is business. For them, it can be emotional. So we have to manage emotions as we go through this, and keeping in mind that emotions could be high on the other side of the table. So once we submit an offer, there's really 3 ways that a seller can respond. They can counter the offer, they can accept the offer, or they can reject the offer. So keeping in mind that countering the offer could be anything. It could be anything in the offer that can be countered. It doesn't necessarily mean price. It could be closing date. It could be the amount of escrow. It could be a contingency. It could be inspections. I mean, it really could be anything in that contract that the seller wants to counter. The happiest scenario is the seller just accepts your offer right away. That's great when that happens. And it does happen if when you put really strong offers out there, and we are seeing that in this market, that there's a lot of really strong offers out there. And sometimes our consultation with our buyer is, you don't always get a second chance to put your offer. It used to be in the old days that you'd put an offer in, and if there were multiple offers, they would then come back and say, we need your highest and best. But that doesn't happen all that often anymore. It's more likely that you will not get a chance to put in your highest and best. So maybe part of what we're advising our buyers is that you might get one chance to put this offer in. So what that means is you have to go in high enough that if your offer gets accepted, you're going to be happy making that payment every month. And it can't be low, and it can't be that, oh my gosh, I wish I just went in $5,000 more, because you might miss out on it by $1,000 or $5,000. So it's really something to stop and take time to coach your buyer on and give them time to make the appropriate choice. Because some buyers are going to be like, let's go in 50,000 over, I've got it. And then a day they get the offer accepted, and then they sleep on it, and then they have buyer's remorse. We don't want our buyers to have buyer's remorse, because that's not good service. And this happens too, guys. A seller might just reject the offer. I've had plenty of sellers that are like, I'm not even responding, just tell them I said no. Because I also have had buyers that are like, you know what, I'm going in $50,000 under because I want to play that game. I want a deal. I want to see how low they're going to go. Well, when that happens, some sellers, because remember, emotions are high. This is personal for the seller. They can get offended. Sellers get it. Once people get offended, it's hard to recover from that. You can recover from it, but sellers do sometimes get offended. I don't know if anyone experienced that where an offer's just been out and out rejected. Not yet. Well, there's lots of things that can happen in each of those scenarios too. So say the buyer makes an offer and the seller counters. Now we open that up for, now we're in negotiation, right? Where they might be saying, I want more money, or I want a higher escrow, or I want a shorter closing time, or I want you to change your lending type, or I want to change inspections. Whatever that is, it's opening up the offer for negotiation. What's important when we go into negotiation is that now your job is to keep momentum moving. Because at any point in this process, another offer could come in that could be better than yours. So momentum is your friend. And when I'm working with buyers and sellers, for example, Sundays, I really try not to work on Sundays. And unless we're negotiating an offer or an offer comes in, and I need to communicate that, right? So it's about setting expectations. So my buyers and sellers know, like, I really work hard to have family time on Sunday. However, when we're in negotiation or we're talking about offers, I'm on. You've got me. I've got your back. So once you're in negotiations, keep that ball moving. And we're going to get into how to make an offer, like what is the process of making the offer, and how there's a lot of selling that happens during that phase. Accepting the offer. So if anyone has a question or something to add, please just jump right in.
Somebody in the chat has, they face a situation of offending the seller.
Yeah, that happens. You know, when that happens, your best strategy is to just get on the same page as with the co-broke. Get the co-broke on your side. And we'll talk a lot about that. But your communication with your co-broke will get you through offending the seller.
Mhm.
How you present the offer will help prevent sellers getting offended. But once it happens, it will also help you recover from that. Okay. So we'll talk a lot about that. If the offer gets accepted, you're just going to jump right in and start the process of contract to close. But if the buyer does reject it, you can re-offer something. You can change your offer. The buyer agent contacts the listing agent to learn more. Don't assume no means no. So the seller may be saying, I'm just rejecting this offer. It doesn't have to mean that they are completely rejecting your buyer. So we'll get into that for sure. So I do like to tell my folks too, like once we get to this point where we've got the offer on the table, we're negotiating, we want to move quickly without rushing. When we're rushing, that's when mistakes can happen, but we do want to move quickly. And remember, when we're doing this process, things are in writing. They're not verbal. And I don't know all of the state's contracts. I'm sure there's a component in every contract that speaks about whatever is in the contract is what is happening. It's not what was said at the showing. It's not what you read online. If it's not in writing, the conversation is over. It's not what was said at the open house. Sometimes the person hosting the open house isn't the listing agent. So if the person hosting the open house said, yeah, the hot tub's definitely going, and you're like, well, we don't have to write that in. Guess what? And then you show up, the hot tub's gone. If it's not in writing, it doesn't count. And emails don't count. It's whatever's in the written contract. One of the biggest pieces of this whole process is your ability to communicate. Your verbal communication, your written communication, how you're holding your emotions in check, all of those pieces will determine your success ratio when you're in the offer process. Okay. So how'd your situation go when you offended the seller? If you don't mind
Yeah.
sharing.
So I can tell you that this didn't happen with me as the real estate licensee. But as I said, I am also an investor and I buy the properties. So I gave the wrong offer, just getting greedy. And the seller was so offended that even though I was willing to negotiate, he didn't come back to me. I think that's why probably you're talking about the emotions. They are emotionally attached to what they possess. And if they are offended so badly, they won't come back to you.
Yeah.
Even the co-broker cannot help in this case. That's what I noticed. I don't know, is that true case with you, or we can definitely deal with the situation? I couldn't.
So, and I invest in real estate as well, so I'm not meaning this as an attack on you, but investors are low ballers. That's what we do. Our job as an investor is to get the lowest price possible because we're trying to maximize our profit on the other end, right?
Make your money when you buy.
So
Yeah, that's true.
that is part of it. And, when I'm representing an investor, it's important for me to be able to communicate that I have to sell the other components of my investor to the co-broke so that whenever I'm speaking to a co-broke, I'm coaching them without them knowing that I'm coaching them. I'm coaching them on what and how I want them to go back and communicate to their seller. So I need to give them the language. I need to give them the tone. If you're going in with a low offer, there better be conversation, verbal, like pick up the phone conversation to that co-broke. If you just send over a low offer, you might as well just plan on offending the seller and not getting anywhere because you're not
Yeah.
giving that agent any ammunition to try to state your case for them.
Yeah, actually, I can explain you a little bit more if we have time, just
Yeah, sure.
2 more minutes. So what happened in 2017, I offended that seller and then I was trying to contact to the co-broker and the co-broker gave me that feeling that seller is so offended. I think it's very difficult to convince him and say, hey man, it's just your offer. You can just talk to him and find out what he thinks. But he never came back. But the problem was that at that time, whatever the property worth, it could be easily 70%. It's now 70% up in the value. So going too low in the offer, I lost that deal. I could have like 70% equity in that property by this time if I couldn't offend the seller. So my question here is not what I did, how I lost. How do I deal with this situation to come back and recover from it? Even the seller is so offended. I don't know why they would do it, but they did it.
Yeah. In this scenario, there could be so many different factors so I would look for what is going on with that property that might be causing the seller pain. Has it been on the market for a long time? Are there tenants in there? Is it run down? Find something. And when you go and present that offer, I would let the agent know, look, my buyer is an investor. They see some value in the property. They know that there's going to be some work. They have some investments, cash investments that they're going to have to make to it. So being an investor, this is a spreadsheet issue. It has to financially make sense for them. So we would like to start here with this offer.
That's a good
We
point.
would like to start here with this offer.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That
And ask-
come up with the numbers and say this is why I'm suggesting it and present to your seller.
Yeah.
And probably that can help. And if it doesn't help, you lost it anyways.
Yeah. And the thing too is and we're going to get into this shortly. But before you even write the offer, we should be asking what's important to the seller. Right? So before I even start typing out, inputting the information for an offer, I'm on the phone with the co-broke. Like I'm going to talk about your co-broke relationships so much in this session, because it's one of the things I'm the most passionate about in this business is you've got to be a good co-broke. You have to have your co-brokes want to work with you. When they want to work with you, it will make a lower offer easier for them to deliver, because I want to work with agents that I know I'm going to get through the deal well with. So I need to call that co-broke up before I'm even writing the offer, let them know, hey, we just went to go see 123 Main Street. My buyer is an investor. We see some potential in here. We're working on formulating an offer and putting some numbers together. Other than price, what's the most important thing to your seller?
Yeah,
Is it making sure that we can keep the tenants in the building? Is it a long close? Is it a short close? Is it a big deposit? Is it less contingencies? Find something. If there's something else that you can put in that offer, then that will also help you not offend the seller. It's not always price.
so
It
that
could be
seller
a big
was,
pile of trash that's outside that you're not going to make them get rid of.
so that seller was completely frustrated of the partnership. And he wanted to get rid of that property and say, okay, I should take the benefit out of it.
Yep.
And I went too greedy, probably.
Yeah,
That's-
there's usually something else. So if that's the scenario, then try to get creative. And then if it's an investor and they're just not willing to go high enough to get the property, then you move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions on the offer process for the buyer before we move on? Okay. Remember too that, if that co-broke doesn't get their seller to the table and the seller and the seller's agent is getting emotional, we've seen this all the time. I'm sure Jason has seen it way more than I have. The seller's agent, this might be the only listing they have. They might not have a lot of offers. They might be like, Susan, I can't even believe you're going to present an offer like that. That's ridiculous. I don't even want to, and they're showing me emotion. We can't show that emotion back. We're going to run into these people again. It's lawful obedience. And sometimes we say that too, like, hey, Jason, lawful obedience. This is the offer that my buyer wanted to present, so I have to present it. I am presenting it. Okay. And eventually we're all going to get that hard seller. So if they're working with a challenging person and the emotion is coming back to us, we're going to have that kind of client eventually too. So part of this job is being able to offer people grace, because we're going to need to receive grace from them at some point. So we're going to talk about preparing the offer. And this is where, they've seen the property, they want to put an offer in. Now we need to get momentum going. We need to move quickly without rushing. And in your materials, I believe, I'm not sure what part of your Ignite materials, there is a checklist to prepare an offer. There may even be some of this material in Command. I'm not 100% sure, but do you know, Jason, is there? I think there's buyer checklists. I'm not sure. You could ask your tech trainer on that, but
Yeah, they are, but they're built out by your market center because each state requires different stuff. That's why, like for us, Susan, we have the Maine and New Hampshire buyer because it's a little different, Form 3 versus the, agency disclosure. So yes, they can be done. So I would imagine most market centers have them done. If you go into Command, you build the opportunity and then you're going to pick whether it's a buyer or a seller. It's going to tell you what forms you need.
Yeah, there you go. The offer from Ignite can be found in your toolkit. So if you have downloaded your Ignite toolkit, this document should be there. But we start with, when you're going to get ready to write an offer, have your checklist ready so that you're not forgetting anything. Because remember that people are emotional. Your buyer most likely is emotional at this point. They may be just so excited, you know, this is the house of their dreams. It's everything they've been wanting. So we need to kind of bring them back down to earth, keep everybody calm. We've already done a lot of consulting with them on their ability to finance, right? So by now, good Lord, I hope that you people have talked to their lender. This is not the time that we're introducing ourselves to the buyer's lender. We should have already done that. So if you're working with buyers right now, when you haven't talked to their lender, that's what you're going to put on your list of things to do today. If we are working and actively talking to buyers and showing them properties, we need to have talked to their lender. We need to know what their buying power is. Okay, so ahead of time, we should know a lot of the information that is going into the offer ahead of time based off of all of the communication that we've been doing with the buyer. The relationship before showings is to prepare your client on how to be a strong buyer. So as we're going through and consulting with them, especially in this market, we're consulting at showings, at open houses, on the phone, during the buyer agency consult on how to be a strong buyer. Like, are you pre-approved? Who are you pre-approved with? Do you need to get them pre-approved with somebody else? Are they pre-approved with Bank of America? You might want to get them pre-approved with somebody else. Are they pre-approved with Quicken, Rocket Mortgage? You best get them approved by somebody else. Because guess what? You're not a strong buyer. If you submit an offer to me with a Quicken pre-approval, that offer is going way down here, way down here. So if you're putting an offer in with a co-broke that has experience behind them, who that pre-approval letter from it matters. Okay. So before writing the offer, we're calling the listing agent. And I just want to see what the next slide here looks like for you. Oh, no, okay, looks different. So we're calling the listing agent before we write the offer. Now, remember that, you know, we're talking about making the offer. So we're working with buyers. We're talking about being a buyer agent right now. And what is important to the seller? And you'll get clues too from the showing. If your buyer went to an open house and you were not able to go with them and you're writing an offer, you need to try to get into that property before you write the offer. So I've had that scenario where my buyer goes to an open house and I'm not able to attend. They come back, they're super excited and they want to write the offer. I'll call the co-broke and say, hey, Jay, my person went to the open house. They love the house. We're preparing an offer. I really would like to get my eyeballs on that before writing it up. Can I get over there and see it real quick? I only need 10 minutes. Try to get in there to see it. You don't know, because the listing photos don't always show you the big pile of garbage that's in the backyard, or the enormous stack of paint cans that's in the basement, or the ceiling that's partway coming down. I mean, there's lots of stuff that could be going on in that property that you really should see before making an offer. So you'll get clues from the showing on, you know, right now as a buyer's agent, we have to be creative because it's a huge seller's market. That might give you clues on what can I put in this offer to make it stronger than somebody else's. And that could be, you know, a long close, a short close. The debris in the trash can be really impactful. So for example, I brought a buyer to a showing and I knew that it was an older lady that lived in the house. The co-broke told me she was going to be moving and going down to Florida, traveling by herself. She didn't have anybody up here to help her pack. And she couldn't bring a lot with her to Florida. Great, thanks for telling me that, because now I know that emptying this house is going to be a problem and a hardship for this person. And I also know that my buyer can't do things like $50,000 over asking like other people are doing. So my conversation with my buyer was, hey, what we know about the seller is this. if you would like to be more competitive, you could offer for the seller to leave everything in the house and leave whatever they want behind, and you'll take care of it. And I prepared them that that could be the food in the refrigerator, the trash in the trash can. We don't know what kind of condition they're going to leave it in, but it will give you a competitive edge. And they got it over people that offered more money. So sometimes finding out what's important to the seller, it's not always about money. It could be that they need to stay there for 3 months instead of a normal 45. So do some digging. Somebody put, what do you do if there are no property comparables? So yeah, writing an offer could be like, you need to know, like, is this going to appraise, right? What are the comps on this? And sometimes you'll find a unique property that won't have a comparable. So you're just going to have to start casting a wider net until you can find some things in there that might give you an indication of price. So where I am, it might be going to a different town. You know, if I'm in a really rural town up here, you know, we have one town named Rollingsford. I was doing a new construction property, and at that time there just wasn't new construction being sold in the town. So I had to go to outside towns to comp that out. If you really get into a bind, well, that would be more on the seller side. I would say you could have a seller, if you're listing the property, you could have the house appraised if you have no idea what to comp it out at, and have an appraiser jump in. Ask for help if you're having a hard time comping it out. Increase bedrooms, reduce bedrooms, and just widen your parameters. Do you have any other advice on that, Jay?
No, I agree with you. You know, I will say that I as a new agent back in 2003, I'm old. I used to hate the whole experience word. I hate it, right? You don't have enough experience, right? But this is the one time I will say experience does help, because how much is a pool worth? How much is a garage bay? You know, if you're really trying to get a unique property and or land, like land is super hard for us up here in Southern New Hampshire, because we are near the lakes and the ocean. So depending on where you're closer to, it can bring value. But yeah, I agree with Susan. Ask for help. Ask your mentor, your team lead, somebody in your market center that, you know, has been around a while. Like, I can't comp this 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Rollinsford. And then if I use a 4-bedroom, what's the difference? For us, it's about $20,000 to $30,000, depending on the town, right? And how do I know that? Just from selling real estate for 20 years. And that changes, ebb and flow as it changes. As you guys close deals, try to get your hands on appraisals. I will tell you that. If your buyers are letting you guys see them, read them, see what they're giving for credit. You'll be shocked at what you get for credit, you know, in certain things. Like a 1-car garage up here, you get $500, right? You can't build one for that, but that's what you get. $200,000 swimming pools, you get $10,000 credit. It's crazy on some of the things that you do get, right? And that's how you kind of learn it. That is the always be an explorer in the business, and never just sit back. Like, you know, Susan Kenyon's always learning, always, if you're not teaching, she's in a class herself. You know, I take her classes, she takes mine. That's what we do. But yeah, try to get those. And if you ever meet an appraiser, hammer him with questions, right?
Yes.
If you can ever meet one, like, hey, I'm an appraiser. Hey, let's get a drink. You know what I mean? Why did you screw me? No, don't say that.
Go to appraisals for agents that are busy for free.
If
If you need me to cover your appraisal, I'll be happy to meet them out there.
and ask questions while you're there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay. So yeah, comping it out can be hard. You know, sellers disclosures, when we're writing an offer, we should be reading the property disclosures, people. There are agents that don't read the damn property disclosure. I'm like, what? You need to read the property disclosure before you write an offer. Guess what? Your buyer might not be reading it. I have had so many buyers that don't read the property disclosure. Before I consult with them on preparing their offer, we read the property disclosure together, line by line. Because something that you might not think is important might be important to them after they close and they call you and say, I didn't know this. You can't say, well, you signed the property disclosure. You can, but you're not going to get repeat and referral business if you don't give good service, people. So read the property disclosure and any property information that you have with your buyer, including the deed. Read the deed, read the tax card, know what the taxes are. Make sure that they can afford that. If the house was newly renovated and the taxes are based off of it being a piece of crap, you better prepare them, if their numbers are tight, that their taxes are gonna go up. Once that gets reevaluated, there's so many things to look at. So read the tax card, read the deed, look at the tax map. Are there rights of ways in the deed, whatever it is? Are there easements? Okay. Is there a homeowners association that doesn't allow pets and your person is like attached to their dog, that's a game changer. Can they not have chickens and they have chickens or they want to have chickens? Whatever property information is, it's important that you know it all going into writing the offer and that you're reviewing these things. Because when we're consulting with our buyers, we should know what's important to them ahead of time, so that when we get to this point, it's a little bit faster, but it's still a good time to pump the brakes and make sure that they understand everything that they're getting into. Okay. Conveyances, consider what time the home will transfer to the buyer. What are there for fixtures? What are there for appliances? Earnest money, how much are they going to put down? How do we be a strong buyer? If they're only putting want to put $1,000 down on a $500,000 house, they're not looking like a very strong buyer. Okay. Do they know that earnest money goes back to them at closing? We want to make sure that the property is going to work for them, because if they're going to invest the emotions of putting the offer in and then getting under contract and then putting like real money down for like appraisals and inspections, only to find out that they can't have chickens, they might have $2,000 into that. And now they can't have chickens and they want to pull out. You can't get the $2,000 back for them. It's important to know these things when we're writing an offer. It's good service to do these things. Time for seller acceptance. Be sure to specify the time for acceptance. Do not be the person that jams Susan Kenyon up on a Sunday at 5 with a deadline when you put your offer in. I will get snarky with you really fast. Don't be that person. I have gotten offers on Sunday mornings at 9 saying that it's expiring at Sunday at 5. You're not even giving that person time to go to church if they want to. Okay, so yes, we're in a seller's market, but we are people. That's a really fast way to get a bad co-broke relationship going, by doing stuff like that. So let's talk about that. Deadlines and offers. They can be aggressive if they're not done correctly, and we don't start off a relationship with aggression. Okay? If I'm going on a date, I don't start by pissing off my date. I don't do that. We're going to be dating this person for a long time if we go under contract. So we need to be starting off on the right foot. Some offers have built in, you have to put in an offer deadline. I love that. Maine does that. But we have to be reasonable about our expectations. And if you are going to put a deadline in there, that's one of the questions that when we're calling this listing agent, you know, hi Jay, it's Susan Kenyon. I'm going to be putting an offer in. My folks love the property. We would love a response in a reasonable amount of time. Are your sellers around for when you submit the offer? Will you be able to speak to them within the next 24 hours? Okay, so we're setting expectations up front. We're not like just boom, slamming them with a big surprise that could torque them off, right? Financing terms. Make sure the financing terms would be agreeable too to the seller. So there's this big conversation that, you know, I seem to have a lot lately with if you work with VA buyers or FHA buyers, where, you know, in a seller's market, people want conventional buyers. So if you have a very strong buyer and they're FHA or they're VA, you need to do extra selling to the listing agent. They have the right to use those programs that are set up for them. It doesn't mean that they're not a strong buyer. If they're a very strong buyer, but they want to take advantage of a VA loan type, maybe they have plenty of money in the bank. You need to let that listing agent know, look, they're very strong. They have reserves. They're not cash poor. but they served in the military and they want to be able to use their VA benefits. Selling, we're always selling. Okay, and we're going to talk about when we're presenting the offer and how we do that, but know the financing terms, make sure that the property will meet the financing terms. If you have an FHA buyer, we know that there's property characteristics that have to happen, right? For a VA buyer or a rural housing or FHA. When you were out at the property, were you looking at the conditions of the property to make sure that they would meet the financing terms of your offer? We need to do that. Sometimes it's asking the listing agent, you should have asked before you even went to go show the property. My buyer is an FHA. Do you see any issues with the property going FHA? If you did see something like a railing missing, a window that's broken, acknowledge that when you're calling to present the offer. I know that there's a railing missing. We are FHA. Is that going to be something that your folks can remedy prior to an appraiser getting out there? We don't need it to be pretty. We need it to just be done. Like a 2x4 would be fine. Right? So we're just setting those expectations on financing terms. If there's anything else with the property condition that's going to be important to the offer, it's important to get that out in the open in the beginning as well. So get your checklist out, you're writing the offer, you're filling in all the blanks, and did I? Uh-oh, hold on. I went ahead, hold on.
I went ahead and for everybody, I text John Kenyon and I asked her, was she nice on the first date? I'm going to find out.
I might not have been. Am I going backwards here? I am. Hold on, guys. I just need to, I've been clicking buttons, not knowing it. I need to back up a little bit.
Script heavy, tech light.
Oh my God. Okay. We're getting back on track. Okay, checklist to writing an offer. We just did that. Creating the offer in command. You should, when I sign up somebody as a buyer or a seller, I start my opportunity in command right from the beginning. So if you guys aren't on command, then get on command. You have all your little apps vertically along the side, the left side, the two shaking hands, that's your opportunity. Create your opportunity, get that going. That way, when you get to the point of the offer, you've already have that piece started. And you can move from there. Let me see. Writing the offer. I feel like this is checklist to writing enough. It does feel like it's still not lining up with what my paper has. Well, I guess it is. Does anyone have any questions on the writing the offer part?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so writing the offer, I have like a couple of questions in that. First is, you're saying to read the disclosure, right?
Mhm.
So all the amenities which is there in the property, so by default, they should be there. They cannot take anything with it, which is in the property and it is kind of like attached, like say bathtub or the whatever, right? So isn't it like a normal thing that they cannot like it's a legal thing that they cannot, or we need to write everything specifically in the offer?
So without getting state specific, I'll give you my best practices for New Hampshire and Maine. In New Hampshire and Maine, if it's attached, it stays, is basically what we go by. But we don't leave that up to question. Like, we can't assume a hot tub stays. We can't, when I'm going for two, we'll back it up and look at it from two perspectives. When I'm working with the seller, if there's something in the house, I ask them very specifically, is there anything in here, whether it's a beautiful chandelier or the hot tub, that you do not intend to leave? Because we need to know that up front. preferably get it out of there before photos are taken. If it doesn't happen before that you need to make sure that it's in writing, everyone knows that those things are not staying. If there's a question on, you're worried about whether it's going to be there at the time of closing, then you write it in, even though you think it's normal that it would be. So it's always about sometimes the Wolf appliances, right? Or the Viking appliances. Is it going to be the same expensive stainless steel Viking stove or Sub-Zero refrigerator at the walkthrough that I saw at the showing? There's so much clarity in putting it in writing. When in doubt, put it in writing. Because we want the contract to close experience to be phenomenal. And it's not phenomenal when you get to the walkthrough right before closing and there's argument over what the property looks like or what was taken out of the property that the buyer was expecting to be there.
So do we have the list of which we need to attach with the offer?
Well, you could ask your leadership on that, but this is part of knowing the compliance piece. I don't want to get too state specific. In New
Right.
Hampshire, it's attached. It's whatever is attached. If it's attached, it's supposed to stay. But when there's a problem, whose fault is it?
So if we write
It's our
that
fault.
if we write something that in the offer that whatever is attached to the property will stay in the property, is that a sufficient statement or we need to provide the list?
If it is something important, then I would write it in. And you know what I'm saying? Like, when it's a problem, it's too late to say, well, maybe I should have written it in. If you think it's going to be a problem, write it in.
Got it.
Would be my advice. Amanda, go ahead.
I think you just answered my question. If it's important, write it in. It was, include model numbers to that point.
If it's a high-end, expensive something and it's important, what's important to your buyer, if it's important to your buyer, if they're like, I want to buy this house because I love that chandelier, you better make sure that chandelier is going to be at the house when they buy it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it's something, if there was an example of a model number, I would give it to you. Nothing's coming to me. But if it's something, if it's the generator and it's the generator that is a whole house generator and it's top of the line and you have the model number, it won't hurt to put it in. It won't hurt to say the whole house generator as seen on January 15th, 2022 at the showing or at the open house.
Thank you.
It might sound like overkill, but I'll give you a quick story about why it's important. Contract to close is your time to shine, and whoever's teaching contract to close will probably tell you all of this anyway. But contract to close is like the dessert. You go out for a fancy meal, you're celebrating something important, you're all dressed up, you get valet parking, you're with your favorite person, the service is impeccable, the appetizers are wonderful, the cocktails are great, the dinner's fantastic, they roll out the dessert, they put it on the table, and there's a fly in it. And now you go out with your friends the next day and they're like, how was your fancy dinner? Yeah, it was okay, but it was really good, but there was a fly in my dessert. When contract to close isn't good, that's what they think about the experience you gave them. Now you want repeat and referral business from them. When there's no fly in the dessert, you get more repeat and referral business. So if you're worried about something being at the property at the walkthrough, write it in. That's the best way I can explain that. Go ahead. You have a question? I hope I say this right. Nikisha?
Yes, you actually said it right. Thank you.
All right, yeah.
So here's my situation, really brief. I'm working with a buyer and we went to see an open house, and the listing agent had it listed as a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Town records listed as a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So how do I handle that situation where the appraisal I know is going to be looking at 2 bedrooms, but I don't want to offend the seller with not a lowball price, but a lowball offer, but a reasonable offer. How would you handle that?
That's a really great question. Thank you so much for asking it. And you're gonna run into that scenario a lot. And sometimes it could be that the tax card might just be wrong. But ask leading questions. So when you get to a property and there's an extra bedroom that shouldn't be there based off of town records, does it look like somebody added a bedroom? Or does it look like it was a town, And if they
Yeah,
did, ask
yeah.
leading questions.
This situation, it was a flip, about 5 years old. The third bedroom is in the basement, so there's no egress. So it's not a legal bedroom.
It's not a legal bedroom. So,
No.
this is where your co-broke relationship and your ability to verbally communicate is going to be really important, because
Mhm.
you can't count on the fact that that listing agent prepared their seller that they really own a 2-bedroom home, not a 3-bedroom home.
Oh, okay.
They may, I wish I didn't have to say this, but the listing agent might not have read the tax card ever. I mean, that happens. So a couple things, you could find out if it was, I would call the other agent and say, I see you have this listed as a 3-bedroom. I'm looking at the tax card. I'm not seeing any permit history. Was that bedroom added with or without a permit? Do you know? If they don't know, you're going to need to find out. Then when you submit your offer, you're going to have to be worried about appraisal, because a 3-bedroom is going to comp out differently than a 2-bedroom. And you need to sell that to the listing agent. Like, look, I'm concerned about the appraisal coming back because the basement is not a legal bedroom. So I know the appraiser is going to be coming in here counting that as this is a 2-bedroom. So you're kind of talking to them the way, and if you're talking to them the way you want them to talk to the seller, then give them something positive first. Like, hey, Nikisha, the house is beautiful. Please let your sellers know we really appreciate how great the house looked at our showing. They love all the things that they've done to the house. We did also notice that the 3rd bedroom is not in the basement, is actually not a bedroom. It looks like it was probably done without a permit, which I totally get. Our offer is based off of what we are anticipating an appraisal coming in at. See what I do there? Like, I gave you something.
Mhm.
And then, you should be like, yeah, you're right. Let me
Right.
go back,
Mhm.
talk to my bot. And then wherever the price ends up landing out, then you need to have a very direct conversation. Well, what are we going to do if this doesn't appraise?
Mhm.
My person can't pay more than appraised value. And you're going to run into this with whoever you go under contract with. So what do we do in that scenario? So we need to kind of like just be setting the table with whoever we think is going to be coming to dinner. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So just one question regarding that.
Yeah.
How the seller agent, or why the seller agent will put that as a 3-bedroom house, even though it is not a legal 3-bedroom house? Are they allowed to put that on MLS? Is that legal? So I'm just putting myself as a seller agent. Should I do that?
I'm just filling in blanks on a software system. So where it says number of bedrooms, I could put 10 when it's a 2-bedroom house. Should I do that? Absolutely not. Am I misrepresenting? Yes, but our job as a buyer's agent is to weed out what is true about the property and what is not true about the property. Maybe it was an honest mistake. I don't know. But we have to find out and do the digging on that. What they should do is put what the tax card says, but that isn't what always happens.
No, my question is, I'm just putting myself as a seller agent. If I do that and somebody on the other side as a buyer noticed it, did I do something illegal? Which I am opening the door to suing myself? I'm just asking.
So this is the way I'm going to answer that. I decide ahead of time who I am as a person, what I'm going to put, what I'm going to allow my sellers to push me around and do. I've already made the decision that I will represent my clients the best way I possibly can, but I'm not doing things that are not truthful and honest. So that's the way I handle my business. So when it comes time for me to decide that a seller wants me to put 3 bedrooms, when it's really 2 bedrooms, I've already made the decision in my head that I'm honest and fair. So I will put 2 bedrooms and market it as potential 3. So you know, what is legal and what isn't doesn't really matter here. As a listing agent, you have to decide who you're going to be. And if that means walking away from a listing because a seller wants you to misrepresent property or lie or whatever, then that's a decision that you're going to have to make. Did you have a comment there, Mr. Westcott?
Well, you know, my broker itch was. So we have to remember one thing when it comes to the MLS, and this is all MLSs nationally, right? They are all subject to errors and omission because we don't know technically who filled that out. Like I may be on a team that has an admin that's filling it out, right? So when you read all your MLS sheets on the bottom, it's going to say subject to errors and omission. That entire page could be wrong. What can't be wrong is disclosures and tax cards and that sort of stuff. Now, if it is, again, that's not the agent's fault. So when we list property, right, we have to list property as what the town has it as. If it is done incorrectly, let's say that the agent did, like Susan Kenyon said, well, I'm going to put in 10. You know, that is a time to have a fierce conversation, an honest conversation, whatever you guys want to call it, with the other co-broke. And I agree with what Susan said. Hey, Susan, this is Jay Westcott giving you a call. Loved your property yesterday. My buyers are super interested. We're reviewing all your documentation. You're setting up the tone that you're doing it right. We're looking at all the documentation yesterday, and you guys have it down as a 3, but we noticed the town has it as a 2. Is there any reason for that? It may be a screw up with the town. And if it is, right, let's say Susan Kenyon says, no, it really is a 3 bedroom. The town has it wrong. Great. Is there any way your sellers or yourself could get something from the town that says that? Right? Be the source of the source. Don't ever be the source. And just put it back on her. Let her get the stuff. Get your offer in, you know, subject to maybe reviewing that or with that attached to it, stuff like that. That's how you want to do it. We don't want to be fighting with agents because you know what? If I had $1, right, I represent 746, I think, as of today. If I had $1 for every time one of my agents was wrong, I would retire tomorrow. And it's said with love. It's nothing more than just, I get it. I was an agent for years too. We are in that business of, oh my God, I got a listing. Oh my God. You know what I mean? We all need to slow down, slow us faster. So we try to teach people, but just remember that errors do happen. Just clarify it. Hey, this is what I saw. Can you tell me what it is? The other agent may go, oh my God, really? We screwed that up? Holy crap. And then I'll get back. I'll change it. You know what I mean? So just kind of know that.
But my question is, are we opening as a listing agent? Are we opening the door to suing us? Or
If you're doing something wrong, then you're opening up the door to being in trouble.
okay,
But that would be my answer. If you're
Okay.
doing something wrong, don't do it.
yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay, offer writing guidelines. Cover letter. Oh yeah, we're not doing this anymore. We're gonna bypass this cover letter. We used to, well, wait a second before I say that. This is not the same thing as a love letter. So some people do a, so the cover letter to submitting your offer. I'm gonna go off of this and then just add a couple of comments. I do sell, we used to do love letters to sellers. A buyer would say, hey, Mr. Seller, I love your home. I can see that you know, whatever, try to align, the buyer's trying to align personally with the seller. We don't do those things because of federal fair housing issues. However, I do a love letter to the co-broke. I do a love letter to the co-broke. I want them to love me. I need to sell, like this is a selling job. We are salespeople. We are always selling. So when I'm submitting an offer, it's a couple of things. I've already talked to them before I write the offer, the co-broke, before I write the offer. I write the offer, I submit it. And with the submission, I have a love letter where I'm outlining to the listing agent how great this transaction has the potential of being. I'm thanking them and their seller for the opportunity to submit the offer. I'm letting them know that I've counseled, if there are inspections, I'm letting them know I've counseled my buyer. They're well aware of what inspections are for. That we're not going to be sending you a honeydew list. that I am an experienced agent, or you don't even have to say experience. You can say, I'm a great agent to work with. I'm a win-win problem solver. Whatever it is that you can put in there to sell you and your buyer to that listing agent, so that you're giving them ammunition to go back to their seller with. That's why I put that cover letter, or that co-broke love letter. And then when I submit an offer, it's also a phone call. Especially if you're submitting an offer like late at night or on the weekend, maybe somebody's actually trying to enjoy some time off. You can't be guaranteed that they saw that offer come in their email. And now you have a buyer that's like, have you heard back from them yet? Have you heard back from them yet? Have you heard back from them yet? I'm calling the listing agent so I can say, hey, we just submitted an offer. These are the highlights. When can I, get an expectation back from when you're going to hear back from them, so that you can set the right expectation with your buyer, because they're anxious. Like, man, you submitted that offer there. They're on pins and needles waiting to hear back from you. So if the listing agent's like, dude, they are gone until Monday, then you need to let your buyer know that, so that they're not thinking your buyer could be thinking you're going to be back in touch with them within 2 hours. And as soon as you're not, they're anxious and they're not getting a good experience. So we're trying to prevent that from happening. So that actually kind of brings us right into presenting the offer. I do want to let the co-broke know that I'm interested in a win-win. If they're, talk about their financing too. Like, hey, they're not only pre-qualified, they're pre-approved. They're working with a fantastic local lender. That is my go-to. That is fantastic. You've probably already heard of her. They have this much money to put down. They've already submitted all their documents to underwriting. So this is a lower risk option for your seller, because the underwriting's already taken a first glance at all of their documentation. Whatever it is that you can be selling and promoting your person to over a competing offer, that's what you're trying to get across to the co-broke when you're presenting the offer. So we're not going to role model presenting the offer, but this is something that, if you guys have the opportunity, if you are a newer agent and you have the opportunity to be with experienced agents as they're presenting offers, try to shadow them on that. There's less objectives when you're educating the buyer from the beginning of the relationship. When you come time to making the offer and then having to present the offer, we're promoting, like, we're trying to sell them as a strong buyer. So whatever you can do to your buyer during the beginning part of the process to make them stronger, so that when it gets time to the offer, you have stuff to sell about them, you advise them on that. Say, look, I'm going to have to present you to a listing agent. When we're at that point, you would look like so much stronger of a buyer if you did these things. Does anyone have any questions on that?
No, not yet.
Sometimes when we're working with buyers and you need them to give more to an offer for the likelihood of their offer getting accepted, we're going back to them, to their motivation. Like, why do you want this house? Why is moving to this town important to you? Remember when we were speaking about this school system and this neighborhood? We might not have this opportunity again. We need to put your strongest offer forward first. You might not get a second chance, and this is the one neighborhood you wanted, whatever it is. That's your time to do that. Let me move on to the next slide. When we're presenting the offer too, we want to make sure that we're picking up our phone. So we're presenting the offer, we have calls out, we might be getting calls back in. Make sure that we're open to, there's a lot of agents that I work with that are just they just text all the time and they don't pick up the phone. But if there's something that has to be communicated with verbally, then encourage some online, some phone communication so that you make sure that we have this clarity on both sides. Okay. And so we're gonna move on to, so we're gonna switch hats and pretend that we're representing a seller. Nikisha, are you all set, or do you have another something to add, or your hand still raised? Just want to make sure I'm not. Okay. So we're gonna switch hats and say, now we are gonna be representing the seller. And I think actually before we do that, do you guys want to take a quick 10-minute break? 12 minutes, we'll come back at 10:30. This is a good breaking point before we switch hats. Okay, all right. I'm going to come back early, so if anyone has a question, I'll be here.
Were you licensed in New Hampshire first or Maine?
New Hampshire.
And then you got Maine, and then you went and got your brokers.
And then I got my New Hampshire brokers. I am thinking about getting my Maine brokers.
If you just did it the other way, you would have, if you got your New Hampshire broker first, then did Maine, you would automatically got it.
Oh, I got my New Hampshire broker first.
You should have got a Maine broker automatically.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you'll get a license of reciprocation. Yeah. Mass will do the same thing.
Huh. So I should reach out to them to find out if I could get my license bumped.
You did it. You might, yeah, you should. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
I
you already
should-
did the national broker exam, so you're passed. You just got to do state law, which you did with Maine. So
Yeah. Thank you, Jay. I should do that.
when you said that, I was like, why is she not in both? Because I know you did New Hampshire first. I remember when you
Yeah.
came to the company.
Yep. And I did the broker class with Jen Vashon. We got our New Hampshire broker at the same time. So have you started the mass classes yet? I've always wanted to get my mass license.
Yeah. So if Vermont's open book. And you do it from home.
No way.
Yeah. I was like, what?
That's
I'm
awesome.
gonna pass that thing in about 2.8 seconds. Gotta
That
be kidding
is
me.
so great.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Yeah. I don't know. I have to really, I need to sit down and just do some basic planning with.
Well, it's hard with everything you guys got
of
going on.
Doing, yeah, John's just doing roofing.
Well, yeah, and you have children that are, military, and you get younger ones that are getting. How old's your daughter?
She's 16, so she'll be
Yeah,
a
so I
senior
mean-
next year,
Yeah, so I mean, you've got all of that going on too.
right? So,
It's
yeah,
a team.
yeah. It's been an 2021 was an interesting year
Yeah, it was.
for sure, but yeah, so
Yeah,
I
I would
need
reach
to
out to Maine and
start-
just say, hey, what happened there?
Mm. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that.
One less test you got to take. You already did it.
Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna put that on my list of things to do.
No problem. It helped.
Thanks for jumping in today too. Tim
Yeah.
texted me and I'm like, whatever you need to do.
I was up at the ski party that we had last night. Tim texted me and I was like, okay, no problem. I'm leaving
That's all
now
we-
because I got to get up early because I'm in Meredith today. Like, this is my Meredith office. So I'm
Oh,
an
you
hour from
are?
home.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was at
Oh.
Gunstock last night.
Oh, wow. No, today was my get back into the 6 a.m. class at the gym day.
I was at there at 3:30.
At Planet?
I go to the gym every day at 3:30.
My daughter was there at 4.
3:30 to 5.
Nice.
5:30, depending on what I do
That's-
for workout. Yeah.
3:30 to, that's early.
Well, then I go home, I eat breakfast, shower, get ready,
Yep.
leave my house at 7, be here for 8:20.
What time do you go to bed at night?
Between 8:30 and 9.
Yeah. Yeah, that's early.
Not because I want to.
Well, yeah. Well, if you're gonna go to the gym, you have to do it in the morning because there's no other time.
Yeah, it gets too, as being my role, it's just my
Yeah.
phone call. It's through the roof between, I would say, 4 and 7.
Oh
I'm doing about 240 calls a week.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Hey,
Sunday.
you guys could join me at the gym at 7:45 PM if you wanted to. It's a great time to go.
Doyle, the only time you're gonna see me at 7:45 p.m. is if you take me to the 100 Club.
I keep offering. Come on.
I know I'm never around.
I know. I do know that.
Yeah,
to hear
I
you
can't
admit
work out at night. I can't work out at night. I used to try to do a 3 o'clock class, but my day would always blow up, and I'd be like, "Well, I couldn't go." My day
Kenyon,
blew
why are
up."
you not doing the hard 75 challenge with us?
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm not.
John would love it. I see
I'm
John at the
back.
gym all the time.
Yep, he goes. He was there this morning because Lizzie invited him.
I was at the gym a couple
Oh,
weeks
at
ago, and
4.
and I'm looking over, and Mark Lesniak's on a treadmill. I'm doing this. Jenny Kopp is like in front of me. I look through the doors and I see John out back. I'm like, that guy looks just like a jacked John Kenyon. He
Right?
comes through and I walked up to him like, dude, I got to be honest with you. I was like, that guy looks like a jacked John Kenyon. He's like, you never thought I was jacked. I go, no, roofing's really doing wonders for you, man. He started laughing.
Yeah.
And then he went into his whole 501c debacle.
Oh my gosh.
Like pulling
Yeah.
teeth, huh?
Yeah. It's
Trying to
crazy.
do something great, and it's like, it's ridiculous, but
Yeah, he can't get an answer back from them. He
Yeah.
he will eventually. You just gotta keep plugging away, you know?
he's doing good.
Yep. Yeah, it's a year of changes, 2021. That's for sure.
Extreme changes for you guys.
Yeah.
Like, when he did it, I'm like, what is he doing? And then I'm like, I talked to him and I'm like, oh my God, John, like, of course you're going to take on another major company. Why wouldn't you?
Yep, he's loving it though.
Well,
He's
he's
loving
got a
it.
creative side to him and a worker side to him. He always did.
He likes the field, even though he's not on the roof, he likes being in the field and
Mhm.
It's not that there's less problems than real estate. It's just different challenges. That's all.
It is different challenges.
But he likes it. And, who knows? Liam gets out of the military in September. I think he's going to come back and work with them.
Already?
Yeah. Yep. He'll
That
have
went
his
by
4
so
years done on September 9th. Not that I'm counting or anything, but September 9th at noontime.
Hey, at 12:01, she's going to be like, you're driving home, right?
You're on your way. You're on your way. You're on your way. I'm sitting outside of Camp Lejeune right now.
Yeah. No, Ma, they're going to take me out for dinner. No, they're not.
No, they're not. They've had 4 years to do that. Oh, goodness.
Wow, I can't believe that. Well, now, how long does Riley have?
Well, Riley has 3.5 years because, he always competes with his brother. And so Liam did a 4-year contract. So Riley did a 6-year contract.
Is he doing 6 total or 4 and 2?
6 total.
God, my brother did a 6 and 2.
Yeah. So
might have
he's in
finished 12,
advanced
so.
infantry school now. And it's a lot of homework. Like he's in 10 hours a day of schoolwork and then 2
Yep.
hours a night of homework. He hates that. But I'm like, well, you got.
Where is he? Is he at Camp Devil Dog?
He is at Pendleton.
That's Camp Dog, yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Yep, he's there. Yeah. He likes it out there.
He's learning every gun there is to learn.
He is. He is. At
Yeah.
least he's doing something,
And a few other choice things that I don't want to talk about here, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
He's
that
learning.
one too. Oh,
Yeah, he's learning the 7 deadly sins, as they call it in the Marine Corps.
yes, he. Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, when he says to his brother in 2 years, I can steal your life in 3 to 5 seconds, he's not kidding.
True. Yeah, it's true. It's crazy. But and you don't think your kids are ever going to grow up and learn those things, but they do.
Yeah, they do. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah. All right.
All right, back to
So,
contracts.
Back to real estate. So somebody had asked before we jump into sellers, somebody had said, what's a good timeline for a response when submitting an offer? So yeah, it really all comes down to is knowing what the expectation is on the listing side too, making sure that you're in alignment. But when you submit it, when it is an email and a phone call, and get confirmation that they've received it. So if you've left a voicemail and you've sent an email and you haven't heard back, like, great, thanks, I got it, then text until you get confirmation. And if you do all those things and you haven't, then start again, just saying, not trying to be a pain, just want to make sure that you got it and that my offer didn't get lost in cyberland somewhere. And then go into the expectation of, do you think we'll have a response within 24 hours or 48 hours? And go from there. Any questions on that?
Well, yeah, that's what I meant. Kind of in the contract, it would be you have 48 hours or 72 hours to either decline or accept the offer, basically. Especially if you're doing offer, if you're looking at other houses, you don't want to like hold the buyer up, right?
Yeah, and so there's a couple schools of thought on that, Mark. I find, so we're going to just pretend we're in New Hampshire where we actually have to write that piece in. It can be very aggressive if you put a hard expire on it, but you are in that scenario, right, with buyers right now where you can't put offers in on 2 properties at the same time. So that too is a conversation. Like, I am putting in here that we have this deadline because we have other options that we want to look at if this doesn't work out.
Yeah, we can't just wait for 2 weeks and not go look at this other house.
No, you just
And then-
can't.
Yeah.
So there's so much power in picking up the phone and having the conversation. So if I have to put a deadline in like that, in a written in deadline in a contract, it's definitely part of the conversation when I call that, hey, Mark, I put this deadline in on this offer. These are, because we're looking at other properties, but this is our favorite right now. So, when do you think you're going to be presenting blah, 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 blah?
Okay.
When is your seller, do they have a deadline? Are they saying, some sellers, the seller's agent might say the seller's reviewing offers on Tuesday at 5.
Yeah.
So that way you can set the right expectations across the board.
Okay.
Mark, are you in Rhode Island? I take it?
Yes.
Yeah. Does your contract have it in it? I don't know the contract in Rhode Island.
I've actually on a couple of houses I bought personally, that's kind of been in there. It really all depends on.
Is it standard
How-
language though? Like, is it in so in Maine, there's actually part of the contract that says this contract dies on this date at this time. New Hampshire, it does not.
It's
Does
been
yours-
about a year, so I'm not.
Okay. So what I would do is sit with a broker or whoever teaches contracts in Rhode Island. Cause I don't know. I've never seen a Rhode Island PNS. Ask
Okay.
them if it has in it. And I agree with Susan. Always find out from the seller. And if this listing agent says, if you do it, my seller will tell me right now they're throwing the offer out. Respect that. Don't put it in, and just
That's
know
why
that.
I was.
Just
don't
know
wanna
that
be-
in like a day or two, just rescind your offer. Send an email
Yeah,
over
yeah.
saying that we're pulling the offer. That way you don't have an offer out there.
Okay.
So yeah, we're in a world right now. If you're working with buyers, I don't know, in Rhode Island, I would imagine it's the same, but I will tell you that like right now, sellers, if you play any game, they're like next. Like there's just so many buyers right now. They're gonna take the best deal for them, which is
Yep.
priced in terms, right? So, but just don't have an offer out there, I guess is my final thought on this. If you decide I'm not going to do one, a couple days go by, email, hey, Susan Kenyon, this is Jay Westcott. We'd like to rescind our offer on 123 Main Street.
Okay.
Because we're out, we want to make an offer on something else. So
Okay.
every deal's different.
Yeah. Any other
Yeah.
questions there? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have one question. It's probably unrelated, but the question is, I am licensed in Massachusetts. What I need to do to get the license in Rhode Island and Connecticut? Is that something like I heard that some states just go with whatever the license you have, like MA, then you don't need to do anything with RI or CTI. I don't know that. So I'm just asking, like, what are the steps to do that?
That's not something I can help you out with. You should go to your leadership. I would imagine that you're either going to get a reciprocal license or have to just take the state requirements. But
It's a
not
reciprocal
something I could
license.
help you out with there.
I
Yeah.
actually just did this myself. It's a reciprocal license. Really, the only thing you have to take is a 3-hour lead course that you can get on like Rhode Island Realtors, the website. But it's you set it up like a new license reciprocal. Go through it. I put the link in the chat.
Please,
Nice.
please,
Thanks,
I will
Mark.
appreciate that. Yeah. And what about Connecticut, Mark? Do you think that the Connecticut also has the same process like Rhode Island, or it's different?
I'm not sure about Connecticut.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Just put the link for Rhode Island, Mark. I will really appreciate it.
That's elicensing.ri.gov.
Nice. Cool. So we're going to move into representing the seller. And so when we're representing the seller, a couple things, we're going to talk about receiving the offer, gathering information about the buyer, presenting the offer to your client, and responding to the offer. So to start with, when you're representing the seller, do everybody a favor, including your seller, and have complete and full docs online and available to buyers that are interested in the property. Make sure that you have a copy of the deed and you have the signed disclosures and all of that documentation. When the buyer is presenting the offer, being a strong buyer should have also looked like, we didn't talk about this when we were talking about buyers, is you're not just presenting the offer, you're presenting everything to be a strong buyer. You're presenting the signed disclosures. If you have them sign the deed or anything else like that, you're presenting those. You're presenting a copy of the earnest money deposit. You're presenting their pre-approval documentation so that you're showing that listing agent right from the beginning how organized you are. and how good you're going to be to work with and how strong your buyer is. But likewise, when you're representing the seller, if you don't have that information, you need to get that from the buyer's agent. So if they've submitted an offer from you and you don't have their pre-approval, you need to go back and get that and investigate that before, while you're, so that you can present that information to your seller. And just like as a buyer's agent, you're asking the seller what's important to the listing agent, what's important to the seller. From a seller's listing agent, you need to find out more about the buyer. So that can be a phone call conversation to the buyer's agent. Tell me more about their lending. Ask specifically about the buyer. Like, do they have to sell something before they buy? Are they already pre-approved? If you don't have that information, if you have the pre-approval, read it. Have they submitted their full docs? Is there anybody else that's going to be named on the loan? I would call their lender. If this is somebody that your seller is really going to be considering, then call the lender. Let them know, hey, I just received an offer from Jason Westcott for 123 Main Street. Just wanted to call and check in on their financing. Have they submitted all their docs to you yet? I mean, they can get a pre-qualification letter by like fogging a mirror. By telling their lender, I have a 700 credit score, they can whip out a pre-qual letter. Like, that's not very good for your seller. That's pretty risky. So you need to do some investigating on that by gathering that information. And then you're going to present that information to your client. So you need to be able to tell them about the buyer. So it could be, that's submitted from this agent. I've worked with them before. I've called their lender. They've signed all the documentation. I have the disclosures signed back. It's such a personal thing. Some sellers really want to know just about the buyer. So whatever information you have about them to pass on to the seller is going to be important in how they make a decision, especially if you're in a multiple offer situation. If you're in a multiple offer situation, you really need to know what the financing is looking like for each of those offers. Does your seller have to find suitable housing? Is that written in? Have you had that conversation with the buyer's agent? Is your buyer aware that we have to put in seller to find suitable housing? Whatever it is that is important to your seller has got to come out at this point of the offer so that your seller can determine what they want to do. How are they going to respond to the offer? And you need to let them know what their options are there. Because remember that they have 3 options, right? Just like when we reviewed it in the beginning, the seller has 3 options when they receive that offer. They can either accept it as it is, they can counter it with anything that's in there, closing date, terms, putting in their seller to find suitable housing, or they can just reject it. Stacy's asking, as a seller's agent, what are we allowed to ask the buyer's lender? As much as you can. Most lenders will want to talk to you about that because they understand the business. They understand that at some point you could be sending them a buyer and they would love that. So they're not going to tell you anything that they're not supposed to. But I ask them when I call them, I let them know, this is the person. They've sent me an offer on this property. This is the purchase price. This was the lending type. Can you tell me about their financing? And I leave it open-ended when I start that conversation so that they can freely tell me what they want to. If they're not telling me enough, then I can ask them more specific information. But I want to know what documentation has been passed in. Has any of their documents been sent to underwriting? Are they truly qualified for this purchase price? And can you get this done within the time period that they're specifying? Because if that agent put down 40 days and that lender is saying there's no way that I can close that until 60 or 75 days, then that may or may not impact your seller's decision. Okay. So reviewing the offer, some questions we do want to find out about the buyer too, like from the list, regardless of who you're representing, you're trying to find out the motivation of the other side. So if I'm the listing agent, I'm going to try to find out about as much about the buyer as I can so that I can dig into their motivation. That way I'll know how much I can push them if we're going to be negotiating. So if I know what their motivation is, then that will have very valuable information to my seller. Like how long have the buyers been looking? Of course, their pre-approval. And do they have a home to sell? It's important to ask that question because not every agent will write that into the offer. They should be writing into the offer that the offer is contingent upon them selling a home, but that doesn't always happen, and you can't assume that the other agent put that in there. I know some agents, if their buyers have to sell in order to buy and that their home is already under contract, they don't always put that in the offer that they give to the seller. But it's important to know that if this offer is truly contingent on that, on their home closing, and they don't put that in there, and they're under contract to sell, but then something happens to that deal, they have to call you and say, "Ooh, I'm sorry, did I not tell you that it's contingent upon their home selling? Yeah, their buyer just pulled out." This is not the time to find that out. So you have to ask up front. Don't assume that they put it in there. You know, if they're moving to this area from out of state or out of town, find out why. Find out what's important to them. Have they made offers on other properties? If so, what happened during those negotiations? You might not get an answer, but there's a lot of agents out there that will tell you maybe more than what they should that will help you uncover motivation from the buyer. So when we are reviewing the offer, we want to make sure that the buyer's agent put in, you know, the correct information. Is everything in there correct? The correct seller's names, the correct property address, the price check to see whether the offer falls in the range of the seller's expectations. Review the earnest money, because you know what happens when you present the offer, right? What happens when you present the offer to your seller? They're looking at one line. How much? But there's a lot of other pieces in there that we have to make sure is correct. So we're going to we're going to review the offer before we even submit it to the seller to make sure that all of those pieces are correct. And if you have questions on any of them, you can get clarity on that before you present it to your seller. And then we're going to move to present the offer to your seller. So we're going to notify the seller that we're going to, you know, email it over to them, present the offer some people want that presented in person. So we should have set up that communication expectation up front. Are they able to review things electronically? You know, we're all going to get those clients that don't look at anything electronically. I've had some clients that even with presenting offers, would have to print them and go over there and sit at their table with them. If that's the case, know that up front so that you can set that expectation with the buyer's agent, right? When they say respond within 24 hours, if you have to go sit at their table with a printed copy and they're not going to be home for another 24 hours, set that correct expectation. Or if it is electronically, that's a lot easier and you can send it over. And then once I send it over, I'm calling them or texting them and saying, hey, there's an offer in there. Please review it. And I will call you in this time frame to review it with you. You can also do that through command if that's what you're using. DocuSign or .loop, however you guys are handling that. So you may have ahead of time done a net sheet with your seller. They're going to want to know, they're going to jump right to, as soon as they get that offer, they're going to want to look and see how much it's for. But we're going to want to make sure that they understand every line of the offer and whatever contingencies are in there. So once you go through line by line, they're going to want to, you know, they need to understand the earnest money. They need to understand the closing date. they need to understand the financing. So if the financing is an FHA or a VA or rural housing, and there's going to be property concerns there, you need to have that conversation with them at the time of presenting the offer. So that if an appraiser comes back and says, you need a railing, or you need to fix a window, or the windows don't stay open by themselves, it's not a surprise at the time of appraisal. And if there are things that are flagged on the property for those, that's when you have the conversation again with your seller. Are you going to be able to take care of those things? They may come up in an appraisal. It might make sense to take care of those things ahead of time if we're going to move forward with this offer. Okay. Any questions? Feel free to jump in there. You know, as far as price, they're also going to need a reminder of what the net's going to look like to them, especially if there's other things in there, like is there seller concessions to the buyer? Are there repairs? What are those contingencies? If there's inspections, walk them through what that process looks like. Because what we don't want to happen is to go under contract because they like the price and then go under contract and then have them not realize other components of the offer that they're now obligated to. Because when they come back and say, hey, Susan, I didn't realize that we weren't closing until this date, then it's too late. They're already obligated. So you don't want those things coming back to you. You want to know, I've had plenty of sellers come back and say, well, I don't have to be out of the house by then, right? We're just closing on it. No, the understanding is that there's a line in there saying the house is empty, and that means you included. You and all your belongings have to be out. So we want to make sure we're setting those correct expectations. And, you know, whatever those contingencies are that are in there. And remind them that contingencies are there so that the buyer can back out of a contract if it's within those contingency deadlines. So when we're giving them the offer, what they're allowed to do with the offer, like are they going to counter, accept, or reject? Is the length of time for a contingency something that they want to counter? Or is it price? Or is it nothing? Are they fine and happy with that offer the way it is and they just want to move forward? Then remember, this is just like when we're working with a buyer, this is where momentum is important. We want to keep this ball rolling. Once we have that offer come into us, we start moving. We get into action. Because if we don't get into action, the buyer could still be out there shopping. They might find another property that they like better and pull your offer. And if we can get under contract, and this is going to be the one, make it happen today so that the time starts ticking on those contingency deadlines, so that they have to get that earnest money deposit in sooner rather than later. As soon as they have skin in the game and it's been cashed, they're a lot more loyal to that contract and moving it forward than they were before. And then I do bring it back to, you know, reminding them once we have this, if this is what we're moving forward with, this is about what the ballpark of their bottom line is going to look like at the closing table. We're pulling out from the purchase price all of their expenses, their mortgage, the commission they're paying, any taxes, any closing costs, if there's buyer concessions. Okay. Another thing to remember here when we're working with this offer, remember that the other agent might not be as at a professional level as you are, but that doesn't diminish how professional we are. If that co-broke is a little bit snarky based off of, you know, what you're going to go back and ask if you're going to be countering, we just still maintain our professionalism and give them information and give them a script that they can go back to their buyer with. If you're countering on how long you need for closing or a price or increased deposit, maybe you're asking for a higher deposit. What is it that you're going back to them for? That you need to give them the language that they can present it to their buyer in the way you want it to be presented and how you want the buyer to receive it. My seller's looking for a larger deposit. It's really important for them to know that your buyer has some skin in the game. We know that it's going to go back to them. Remind them, we know it's going to go back to them at closing, but it increases our comfort level if we put the deposit at this number. We really need to get past these contingencies because my seller has these things going on. So we need to decrease the amount of time allotted for inspections. I'm happy to help you find an inspector that's available during that time if you're having a challenge with that. So we present these things to the seller. Make sure that if there's more than one decision maker there, that when you're presenting the offer, they are all there and part of that. And then set the expectation of, we need to get back to the buyer. If there's multiple offers, then you're going to have to go through this multiple. You might say, hey, we've got 3 offers. I'm going to send them all to you. Let's review them all at this time. And then set the expectation of when you're going to get back to the co-broke. Brenda, yes, sellers are emotionally invested in the property. Sometimes you need to reset what is important. Motivators. Yeah, it always comes back to motivation. Maybe the property's been sitting there and you have a good offer. So we need to remind them, hey, you know what the best offer is? The one on the table. Sometimes you might have, if you have some days on market there, you might be getting an offer in at a lower purchase price than what's palatable to your seller. So how you present that is important. Like, hey, Jason, I have good news. We have an offer. The number is this, and what this is a starting point. So let's talk about where we go from there. We're kind of giving it to them, and then we're giving them a breath. Like, this is a starting point. This is how the conversation gets started. This is great news. Let's talk about your options. Okay. How can we get you to Florida? Then bring back their motivation. And thanks for bringing that up, Brenda, because their motivation is super important, right? If their motivation is to get to Arizona to see their grandkids, then your conversation starts as, great, we have an offer. The price is this. It's a good starting point on how we can get you to Arizona to be with your grandkids by summer. Wouldn't that be great? Awesome. Let's look at it together. So how you communicate with them is important. Jump in if you guys have any questions on that. Okay, because we're going to talk about how to respond to the offer. So the seller now has to reach a decision with those 3 options, right? Countering the offer, accepting the offer, or rejecting the offer. It's important for everyone to understand the seller doesn't have to go back for highest and best. Part of, in New Hampshire, part of, we need to have permission from our seller to let buyer's agents know if there's more offers on the table than one. So if they are like, yes, you can let them know that, then you might need to go back to that buyer's agent and say, hey, there are other offers on the table. If you're trying to get the most out of that offer, that buyer's agent might not realize that they're not going to get a chance to make a highest and best. Is this truly their highest and best? And if there's multiple offers, they especially might some sellers don't want to go through the stress of going back and asking for highest and best. They're just going to want to pick one and get past this. It's super emotional and super stressful for sellers. So they might just want to pick one and move forward with it. So our job is to make sure that we have the best to present to our seller in that scenario. If there's a deadline, then we need to let the buyer's agents know that there's a deadline. And the best offer is not always price. So if you know that the motivation is a timeline, then reminding your seller of that could be important. If your seller has to find suitable housing and you have an offer from a buyer that doesn't have a home to sell and is very flexible on closing date, and you have another offer for a little bit more money, but that buyer has a home to sell, that little bit of more money might not be the best offer for your seller. So you need to go through those components with them and make sure that you have the most accurate information to be relaying back to them. And again, we're making sure that we're going over line by line with our sellers, what is in that offer. Because after you go under contract, if there's a piece in there that's not so palatable to them and they didn't realize it, that's not good service from you. Okay. They may choose to just accept an offer right from the beginning, whether it's the only offer on the table, or if it's multiple offers, they might just pick one and say, I'm not even negotiating, I just want to go with this one. That's fantastic, because then you just go under contract and you start the contract to close process. I used to often tell sellers, before this market of getting a gazillion offers on a property, sometimes frequently your best offer is your first offer. So if you've been on the market for a few weeks and then you get an offer, holding out for more money might not be in your best interest. Frequently your first offer is your best offer. And then, again, we're going to have buyers that just send in a lowball offer, because that's how some people are wired. I do like to tell my sellers, you know what, I know it's low, but it opens the door. It's a conversation. You can choose to just reject it, or we can go back and counter. And if they want to just reject it, they can do that. And then let them know that we can reject it. And if they want to come up higher, they may come back to us with another offer. Any questions on those?
I do have one question on that seller mentality kind of thing, seller contract, the seller agent mentality or seller mentality. So if suppose they're getting the offers and they got like one with the escalation, and they say there's one offer with the escalation, but the other, is that a fair thing to go back to the buyers and say, hey, we have escalation and your offer might be beaten because of that escalation? Do you want to increase the offer? Is that a fair statement to asking offer to the buyers, or that's not legal or whatever?
Well,
Sorry if I'm confused. Is question clear? So clear. Sorry, I was little. Here and
You're
there.
basically wanting to disclose information about one offer to other parties that have offers on the table. So the answer is yes and no. There may be specific state guidelines, so I really want to try to keep it non-state specific. And it also depends on what's in the offer. Some people are writing things in offers that are putting things back into a confidential scenario where you can't disclose. So the answer, unfortunately, is it depends. And we do what our sellers direct us to do. So have I gone back and said to other buyers that we have escalation clauses? I haven't personally done that. I have gone back and said we have multiple offers, if that's how I'm directed by my seller. So what is legal is it depends on what's written into the offers and what your state guidelines are. If your seller, if your state allows it and your seller is saying go back and tell them I have an escalation, then you go back and do that.
Yeah. And
I'm
the other
finding
thing is,
practically if you tell people there's multiple offers, that they're generally putting in what their highest and best is at that time.
okay, I think that's a fair statement. Okay, so next question is, sometimes the seller comes up with like a no deadline for offer. How do we deal with that kind of situation? Is that if I'm a seller agent, should I do that? Is that a good practice or is that a bad practice? How do you describe that?
Do you mean a guideline for when they're going to receive respond to offers?
Yeah, they don't have any guidelines. I got like one seller agent saying that, I asked him like, do you have any deadline to present the offer? And said, no, we are still just keep on accepting it. And and we will
Yeah,
let you know.
hey, that's how we always used to do it. We didn't put offer deadlines in. It wasn't as popular as it is now in previous markets. The thing to remember about offer deadlines when you represent a buyer is that the seller can accept an offer when if you say, I'm putting the house on the market, it's going online on Friday, it's going to be shown all weekend, and the seller's going to review offers on Tuesday. If they receive a phenomenal offer on Sunday, they can take it.
Yeah,
So as from a buyer's agent perspective, if a house comes on the market and you have somebody that's very interested in it, get your butt out there to see it as soon as you can and if they want to put an offer in, get it in. That's how I do it. Just because it says the seller's reviewing on Tuesday, they get a fantastic offer. And their spouse is like, you know what, just take that. I want to be done showing this house. It's been a nightmare all weekend. People in and out. Just take that offer. They can do that.
okay. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So again, we're back to those three options for reaching a decision on the offer. Okay, then we have to respond to the offer. And let me see here. And again, that is, we're going back to the co-brokes. We're letting everybody know, like if you're responding to an offer and then you go under contract, you need to go back and make sure you if you're in multiple offer situation, let the other people know that you moved forward with somebody else. Sometimes it's easy to forget to do that, believe it or not. And then you have buyer's agents that are out there hanging out, waiting to see what's gonna go on, and you're just excited about going under contract with your seller. So we want to make sure that we're responding to everybody with what's happening. But we need to respond to the offer, and that is going back and making sure that everything that we do is in writing. If we are going to be negotiating, remember that everything gets put in writing, because if you just email your response back, that's not indicative to necessarily what the seller has agreed to. We need the seller to be signing off on what their response is. If you're going to be going back and negotiating, you're going to come to terms, you're going to get all your documents signed, and then move forward with going under contract. And that's actually a really happy day, but that's just the beginning. Now you have a lot of other things to do before you get to the closing table. But that's the basics of, making and receiving an offer for that piece of it. Is there anything that resonated in particular with people today? Any ahas or things that might make you want to do something differently?
I'm trying to raise my hand, but I'll just
There you
talk.
go. Yeah. There you go, Julia.
You're welcome. I think the motivation thing is, like you were saying, yeah, we're salespeople, but the motivation thing and reframing it so it's to their benefit is a nice way of saying it. Like, yeah, let's get you on a beach on Cape Cod like this summer. Like, let's do this. What do we have to do today to like get you on that beach in April, kind of thing?
Yeah, it's important. And, whether you're working with the buyer or the seller, it's important to keep them on track, because we're all like a squirrel. So, if you're working with a buyer and you're seeing a bunch of properties, we need to bring them back to what their goals are, especially if people have timelines that they have to adhere to. We've got to keep them on track to make sure that they're hitting their goals. So yeah, the motivation's a great one. For sure. And setting expectations is super important. Like expectations with time frames, with responding. Hey, Michelle.
Hi, I just wanted to say that the reinforcement of how important communication is with all parties that you're interacting with, and how important that is to prevent any like future glitches happening. It just really resonates with me.
Awesome. Thank you for that. yeah, that, communication. So the thing about communication, and I forget what session what it is that we talk a lot about communication within Ignite, but with communication, it's sometimes figuring out what's the best form of communication for this particular scenario. Because there's times when texting is great, right? Like I just need to set up a showing, I'm going to send a text. And there's times when you have to pick up the phone. If you have a co-broke, when we're making and receiving offers here, and you have their, if your texts start being like this long, that's a sign that it's a phone call. If you have to get some clarity around something, picking up the phone, picking up the phone can keep things moving more quickly. When you are in the making and receiving offers part of working with the client, you need to keep things moving. And if you're waiting for an email to come back, you can stall out so quickly. And now you need to get under contract, people. So pick up the phone, get those questions answered so that you can move forward quickly without rushing. And then, of course, in writing. So there's a lot of times when an email is going to be a good way to either back up what you've discussed on the phone or to make sure that there's written clarity on what's happening. Cool. Feel free to jump in, and your opportunities and command will help you keep all of this stuff organized too. If you have multiple offers, then in your opportunity, you can put all of your different offers in the opportunity so that you have an easy way to compare them with your buyer or your seller. So you guys have been talking about your daily success habits too, as you've been going through Ignite. And, even though this is part of the making and receiving offers, we do want to go back to always making sure that our goals, which was part of our running our business, are the 10 contacts added a day. So we should still be doing this today, even when we get finished with Ignite, 10 conversations a day. And conversations are two-way communications. It's not, I'm shooting out a Facebook message and I hope that they get back to me, but Facebook messages might be a two-way communication, right? So if you have a two-way Facebook message communication, then that's a conversation. 10 handwritten notes and 10 homes previewed every week. One of I think it was in the very first session of Fuel Your Career, there was a little video with Gary Keller, if you guys remember that or not. I keep little sticky notes on my desk. Sometimes they're an affirmation or just a reminder. And I wrote this sticky note in particular after that video, the very first time I heard it, where he said, dealing with business never takes the place of finding business. And I read this every day as a reminder that the lead generation is important, and dealing with business never takes the place of finding business. So even once we're making and receiving offers and we're going under contract, we still need to be feeding our pipeline and finding new buyers and sellers to work with. So it's important to, calendar your day in a way that you can handle both the making and receiving offers and your lead generation so that we're always finding new business. And remembering that small things done consistently add up to big things in the long run. So the consistency of that growing your business side of the page where we're lead generating and making buyer and seller presentations is still super important so that we always have the opportunity to be making and receiving offers. And read your contracts and practice so that we're not practicing on our clients. So when we get to making and receiving offers, the contract should not be new to us. There should not be any new line on the offer that we're unfamiliar with. So practice your contracts. If your market center offers contracts class, go to it. I still go to mine so that I'm always up on what is happening. I'm practicing my contracts with my peers and with Jason and Sue Doyle, who was on this call too, offer, important tidbits on contracts. So if you have the opportunity to practice contracts with people in your market center, it's important to be doing that. We're not going to do any scripts today, but it's important to realize that scripting is still important so that we're not practicing on our customers and clients. That's why we practice with each other. And you can script on lead generating, uncovering motivations. There's scripts in your the script book that comes with Ignite. There's identifying objections and how to overcome those, closing deals. And it helps us, scripting helps us to speak in terms that customers understand. There's scripting just on your contracts and how to explain lines in your contract to your customers and your clients. And scripting helps us build confidence. Whether it's one line, like when we're negotiating a contract, if we have to come in terms where the buyer wants one thing and the seller wants another thing, but we know we can close this gap, then your script might be, hey, we have a buyer that wants to buy and a seller that wants to sell, Mark. How are you and I going to work together to make that happen? Because this is what you're saying is important to your person and they're right. This is what's important to my person and they're right too. But let's get them to meet in the middle so that we can move forward under contract. Now, if I don't practice that, I'm not going to say it as easily as I just said it. Can you please elaborate on examples of what it is you include on handwritten notes? That's a great question, Michelle. Thank you. It can be anything. I love handwritten notes. When you're making your calls, when you make your 10 contacts, it could be about something, you know, reiterating something that you just had that conversation on. It could be while you're scrolling through Facebook and you're seeing something important happen in someone's life. That could be a handwritten note. Hey, I saw that your daughter just got accepted to the University of New Hampshire. Congratulations. She must be so excited. I hope she has a great year. It could be a sympathy card. It could be a congratulations card. Hey, congratulations on your new baby. I hope everything's going well. It could be something you heard on the news or saw that's happening in your community. You know, sometimes when people have small children, I don't have small children anymore. So I love reaching out to people with small children and saying, hey, did you know that this library session is coming up for kids in kindergarten? Your kids might like it this summer, or there's a new park opening up. There's so many opportunities for handwritten notes, but especially after you just talked to someone, for them to get a handwritten note from you in the mail is awesome. I do birthday cards with scratch tickets in it, scratch cards in it. If I see birthdays of someone in my sphere on Facebook and any of my past clients, they all get, when we're at the closing table, I take a copy or a picture of their license. So I have their birth date so I can send them a birthday card. It could be as simple as that. It could be a new buyer closed on a house. You send them a home anniversary card. The reason we do these things is we get repeat and referral business. It's our job to remind people that we're realtors. Because you know what's awful? When we go on Facebook and someone that you've known for a long time just bought and sold with somebody else.
Mm.
That's happened to me. And I can only be upset with myself because it's my job to remind them that I'm here. It's not their job to remember. I actually, you know, you can keep even a doc on your computer with messages that are easy to write and even cut and paste if you're going to be doing them frequently, like quick messages. And you can even Google that. Like if you're not sure what to write in a sympathy card, Google it, get some ideas going. Keep a Google Doc on that so that when you are writing those cards, it's really easy to whip that out. It doesn't take away your authenticity. It just makes it more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
When you come from a place of authenticity and contribution, even if you need those little reminders, it doesn't take away from that. It just makes it more efficient. Okay. I won't put you through role play or scripting, but I will encourage you to get a script partner. And as you guys are making your calls, please adhere to the do not call list and you know, there's a script for that. If you call somebody on the do not call list, your script is, I'm so sorry, Jason, I will take you off my list. I hope you have a wonderful day. And then do take them off your list. Okay. So this is a, you know, a new year, and my goal here this year, one of them is to clean up my database. And by doing that, like doing that means updating our contacts and follow up. So are you guys all using Command?
Yes.
And if you're not using Command, use something. If you are using Command, this is a great opportunity, the beginning of the year, to call people, get their full contact information, their email, their phone numbers, their mailing address, so that you have all of that. While you're while you're updating a contact information, go onto their Facebook page. If you can get their birth dates from there, put that in Command so that you can start setting up ways to reach back out to your database with follow-up. That is how they will remember to reach out to you when they have a real estate need. So updating our contacts is super important, not just their contact information, but update it with what's happening in their life so that you know with what frequency to reach out to them. Because I don't know if you remember, one of your sessions had a wave like this of reaching out to your contacts. And I love the wave, because the wave would start off at the top of a wave was when someone bought or sold. And then it got all the way down to the bottom. That was the furthest away they are from transacting. And then as they go back up to the next point when they're going to contract, everything that happens from the bottom of the wave to the top of the wave are life events that we can ask people about when we call them. What's happening in their life that's going to make them ready to transact again? That's what we update our contacts with. Are they having more kids and increasing their family size? Are they going to need a bigger house? Are their kids starting to graduate within the next couple of years? They're going to need to downsize. Are they going to be getting ready for a second home? Are they going to have retiring parents? Are they going to be looking to be snowbirds? We're asking about life events. We're putting them into Command so that we know how to follow up with them. Because it's the follow-up. If we go through all the work of getting contacts and putting them in our database and we don't follow up with them, we won't get the business. So we're lead generating for new business, and part of that is calling our database, finding out what their life events are so that we're there when they need help. And practicing our contracts. So we do have tools available to us, Command and Connect. This is your time to jump into Command if you haven't already. And also, you know, creating your daily success list. I know these last few slides are slides that you've seen before. You're creating your daily success list. It could be a printed out sheet like that. I have mine on a notebook. This is my daily notebook. It goes with me everywhere. And I write every day. At the end of the day, I write down what I haven't done and what I need to do the next day on a new sheet. And if I didn't finish it today, it gets put back over here for things that I have to do. And I do what I have to do first, you know, prioritizing. And I know you've had some time management training in Ignite already. So that would be a good one to review if you need to, on how to make sure that you're doing the most important things first and prioritizing them. And we prioritize them by lead generating first. Because if we wait to lead generate until the end of the day, it doesn't happen. And this is going to be a first that I'm like a half hour early in ending. Does anybody have any questions or things that you want to go back and revisit before we adjourn for the afternoon? No? Okay, I am going to put my information here. And if anybody needs anything, you're welcome to reach out to me at any time.
Especially
There
if you
you
have a
go.
great referral for the Seacoast area.
If you need New Hampshire and Maine, I'm your girl. I am happy to help if you need anything. Okay. All right. You guys are free to go. If you have anything, please feel free to reach out to me on the side. I'm happy to help. And it's Monday, so go out and have a killer week. Set some appointments.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
I don't have my